What's up, everyone? My name is Alan, founder and consultant at Furnout Marketing, and welcome to Liquid for Technical Marketers. Today, we're going to build an abandoned cart email using for loops and arrays of objects. Let's get started. So before we jump into our email and look at our for loop, write our for loop code together, we are going to review a custom attribute or a specific data that lives on my user profile. And it's going to be a custom attribute called abandoned cart items, and this will be an array of objects. So if you need a reminder on what arrays of objects are and how they work, please watch the arrays and objects video posted from week 3, session 5. But let's go ahead and click on this view nested object or array of objects and see what it looks like. So this is my abandoned cart items data. Imagine I was doing some shopping on the Nike website and I had 3 items in my cart. And here's some metadata about all those items, things like product name, size, price, color, quantity, and image link. So in my custom attribute, or we have this variable called abandoned cart items, which is an array of objects. And if you remember, an array is just a list. So this is a list of 3 items. We have 0, 1, 2. In computer science and arrays, we start by counting at 0. So it's a list or an array of 3 items. And each of those items, where each of those items are objects, meaning it's a group of data. So in my object, I have metadata or children data such as product name, size, price, color, quantity, and image link. I have these 6 attributes or metadata or children data for each of my 3 array items. So I have the second one, and then there's the third one. So what we're going to do is use this variable called abandoned cart items, and technically a custom attribute in the Braze context called abandoned cart items, an array of objects. Mix that in with for loops inside our email to build our abandoned cart email. So let's look at what that looks like now. All right, so here we have this awesome cart abandoned drag and drop template that Braze provides us, which, by the way, for loops and Liquid can be written perfectly fine in both HTML and drag and drop. So just for simplicity, today I will be using a drag and drop editor. And right now we have a hard-coded email. So what that means is everything inside this email and all the items in my cart are hard-coded, meaning it's going to be constant. It's static. This is what anybody will see no matter what. So in other words, the data isn't dynamic. For example, let's take a look at how this email will render for my specific user, the one that we looked at previously. So if I search up for my user based on my external ID, so this is the user Alan. But even for Alan, who was doing some shopping on the Nike website, will see these static, hard-coded, abandoned cart items. So what we want to do is using for loops and arrays of objects, we want to make this email completely dynamic and personalized for the unique user that is looking at that email, and making sure that their abandoned cart items, which show up here, show up in this email. All right. So how that looks in Liquid and how that looks in Braze and email in Liquid is when we go through the for loop. When we go through the array of objects using a for loop, think about it this way. So we are looking at this data called abandoned cart items, and we are going to go through every item in this variable, and we're going to apply the same set of instructions. We're going to apply the set of instructions from everything between the for tag and the n4 tag. And then we also have a way to access every single one of these metadata or children data inside our email. So how that's going to look is we're actually going to include a paragraph tag right where we want our for loop to begin. So that right there is perfect for me. And then what I like to do is decrease my padding to 0 so that it doesn't take up any extra space. And by the way, when even we're going to insert our for loop here, and even though there is some text and some code here, when the email renders, this paragraph block is going to disappear. So it's not going to render. It's not going to take up space in our email. So we don't have to worry about that. And if you remember, we have what's called a for loop variable. So I'm just going to call it item. It's a very intuitive, simple name. We are looping through every item for item in our custom attribute called abandoned cart items. How to grab custom attributes in Braze? The best way to do it is click the personalization button, go to custom attribute, and we're going to look for abandoned cart items. Copy the liquid snippet and then just paste it in. So as a reminder, what's happening here is for every item that we have in our array of called abandoned cart items, we are going to perform the set of instructions below. Well, in our situation, the set of instructions isn't quite additional code, but it's actually rendering this one row, this one module that contains one of our abandoned cart items. So what we're going to do is instead of render the same hard-coded static row, we're going to make this row or this module completely dynamic. So if you remember, I may be doing some toggling back and forth, but if you remember, we have product name as our first thing. So how we can reference product name is item. So every item that we're going through is actually an object, meaning for objects, we can reference the metadata using dot notation. And then so we can do item dot product name, close the brackets, and delete all the rest, making sure it is called product name. And then we're going to go ahead and fill in the rest of the dynamic module. So this one is going to be, I'm actually going to copy and paste this. And then insert product item dot price. This one is going to be color. So item dot color, item dot size. And then finally, actually not finally, item.quantity, making sure all the spelling is right once again. And then we do have, last but not least, image link. So in drag and drop editor, you click the image, and then you can actually toggle this image with liquid button. And we want to use a dynamic URL. And the dynamic URL hides behind our variable called item.image_link. So just to summarize, what's going to happen is for every item in our array of object abandoned cart items, we're going to render this module that has all of these dynamic metadata or children data inside, including the image. And then we're going to repeat this row as many times as there are a number of items in our abandoned cart items. So since for us, we have 3 items in our abandoned cart items data, this row is going to repeat itself 3 times. And actually, before I conclude that thought, we're going to insert another paragraph tag right where we want our liquid for loop to end, maybe right here. So I do want this divider to show up in between every module or every iteration or cycle. So same thing here, I'm going to delete the padding. And then just like end if statements, we also need an end for statement. So for every item inside our abandoned cart array of objects, we're going to repeat this module filled in with all the dynamic data, repeat this divider, do it again as many times as the number of items we have, and then we are going to end the for loop there. Which means I don't actually even need the second module, or I don't even need to try to predict how many modules there are. I just have one module that is going to serve as the model for our email, and then I repeat that as many times as I would like. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that extra hard-coded module, and then I have the end for statement. And then now when I render this email, I should expect to see 3 items that I have from my abandoned cart items, all Nike products, populated with the data that we see here. Let's go ahead and click the eyeball for the preview. And if we scroll down a little bit, we have our shoe, Air Jordan 1 Low OG Mocha, color, size, quantity, price, and of course the image. All of those are dynamic and personalized. And you can also see that the divider repeats after every module. So there's 1, there's 2, there's 3. And then that brings us to the end of our email. So if I zoom out a little bit, that's how our abandoned cart looks like. And then going back to our for loop, it's as simple as putting the for tag where we want our loop to start. populating our module with the right data where necessary, and then ending our for loop where we want the cycles or the iteration to end as well. That's it for today. Thanks for watching and see you next time.